Most people are ruled by fear, weakness, and the opinions of others. But what if you could rise above them, become untouchable, turning your mind into a weapon sharper than any blade? In this video, we will forge a mentality so ruthless, so resilient, that the world will bend before it or break trying. Power is not given. It is seized by those who understand the cruelty of reality and the frailty of human nature. The world is a battlefield of minds, where the timid are devoured and the strong are obeyed. Tonight I will guide you into the shadows, where illusions die and clarity is born. Here, we will craft not merely confidence, but a mind of steel, a mentality monster, cold, calculating, and unyielding, built to dominate chaos and carve its own destiny. The powerful have always known this. The rulers of states, the masters of empires, the puppeteers of nations, each understood one truth: mental fortitude is the first weapon, and without it, all others fail. Consider Cesare Borgia, a man who rose from obscurity to command armies, crush rivals, and bend Italy to his will. His strength was not in his sword, nor in the loyalty of soldiers. Those can be bought or stolen. It was in his ability to remain composed while others panicked, to plot while others prayed, to strike when others froze. He understood that fortune favors not the bold, but the unshaken. And what of you? Do you believe strength of mind is mere confidence? No, confidence is fragile. It shatters when reality cuts too deep. Mental fortitude is different. It is the ability to absorb chaos and still think clearly. To suffer humiliation and still plan your return. To lose what you hold dear and yet remain unmoved, because your focus is survival, and survival demands control. Look at history. Nations crumble when their leaders panic. Armies rout when their generals hesitate. Kingdoms fall not because of a stronger enemy, but because weakness seeps into the mind like poison, spreading indecision, fear, and doubt. Those who hold their composure, who stand like marble statues while the world quakes, command the loyalty of all who seek safety. But how does one forge such strength? Through comfort? No, comfort breeds softness, and softness is the first step toward ruin. A hardened mind is not born, it is crafted, forged in trials, sharpened in adversity. You do not strengthen steel by caressing it. You heat it, hammer it, and plunge it into cold water, over and over, until it becomes unbreakable. So too must your mind be tested. Not once, not twice, but relentlessly. Ask yourself, when betrayal strikes, do you collapse into outrage, or do you calculate your next move? When opportunity slips through your fingers, do you curse fate, or study why you failed and seize the next chance with precision? When you are insulted, do you burn with anger, or do you smile, knowing the fool who insults you has just revealed his weakness? The mind that endures without flinching becomes the mind that commands. It sees the game while others see only pieces. It waits while others rush. It acts while others hesitate. Modern life disguises the battlefield, but it is no less brutal than in the days of kings and conquerors. Promotions at work, social influence, relationships, alliances. Each is a contest of will, where hesitation is punished and weakness exploited. How many times have you watched someone lose because they could not control their emotions? Because they let fear dictate their choices? Because they mistook comfort for safety and pleasure for strength? A mentality monster does not make that mistake. They do not cling to hope. They manufacture advantage. They do not wait for rescue. They become their own salvation. They do not beg for mercy. They inspire fear of retaliation. Every thought, every decision, every reaction is guided by one principle: control the mind, or be controlled by those who can. This is why fortitude is not simply endurance. It is vision under pressure. It is calm in the face of betrayal. It is the cold, disciplined refusal to let circumstance dictate destiny. Those who possess it do not merely survive storms. They bend the wind to their favor. And yet, this is only the beginning. For strength of mind alone does not guarantee victory. It must be sharpened into something far more dangerous. Something few dare to wield. What is that weapon? Detachment. Most people are ruled by their emotions. They call it passion. They call it loyalty. But in truth, it is slavery. The moment anger flares, reason fades. The instant desire awakens, judgment falters, and when fear takes root, decisions are no longer your own. The powerful have always known this. They act, not from impulse, but from calculation. They feel, but they do not serve their feelings. They control them, bend them, weaponize them. Detachment is the means by which this control is won. Consider Marcus Aurelius, an emperor surrounded by betrayal, intrigue, and war. He wrote to himself, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This was not philosophy for comfort. It was survival. A ruler who reacts emotionally to every crisis will be destroyed by the first one that strikes. A ruler who remains detached. He commands not only the empire, but himself. But you, do you remain calm when provoked? Or do you lash out, handing your enemies the reaction they crave? When insulted, do you defend yourself with fury, or let silence speak louder, leaving them uncertain of your next move? Every time you allow emotion to dictate your response, you forfeit control. You become predictable. And the predictable can be manipulated. Detachment is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of it. It is the difference between the general who watches his army bleed and collapses into despair, and the general who watches the same scene and sees only the opportunity to flank the enemy while they advance. One dies with his men, the other wins the war. In modern life, the principle is no less lethal. A business leader who panics during a crisis loses the confidence of their team. An investor who chases every surge of greed or panic becomes a slave to market swings. A lover who cannot detach from jealousy becomes the architect of their own heartbreak. The battlefield has changed, but the rule has not. Emotional control is power. How then do you cultivate detachment? First, by understanding that emotion is information, not instruction. Anger tells you someone has crossed a line, but it does not tell you how to respond. Fear warns you of risk, but it does not demand retreat. Desire suggests a gain, but it does not calculate the cost. Detachment takes the message and ignores the impulse. It asks, what serves my long-term advantage? Not what satisfies my temporary feeling. Second, by embracing perspective. The insult that enrages you today, will it matter in a year? The fear that freezes you, will it matter when the opportunity has passed forever? The pain you feel, will it matter when you rise above it, stronger, colder, and more dangerous than before? Detachment allows you to step outside the moment, to see the full battlefield while others see only the wound. And finally, by practicing concealment. Even when emotion does grip you, do not reveal it. The world cannot exploit what it cannot see. Show calm when chaos erupts. Show stillness when anger burns. Show indifference when desire tempts. For nothing unnerves a rival more than the one who does not flinch. Those who master detachment become architects of outcomes. They know when to strike, when to wait, when to walk away. They do not win every battle, but they never lose their composure. And that alone makes victory inevitable. But detachment has a darker purpose, one most dare not face. It is not merely self-control. It is the key to seeing the world as it truly is. This perspective is rare. Most people wander through life as if the rules of survival no longer apply. They believe kindness alone guarantees safety. They mistake comfort for control, mercy for strength. And when danger strikes, be it betrayal, failure, or public humiliation, they stand shocked, as if cruelty was never part of the game. But predators know better. They do not see the world as fair or unfair. They see it as a hunt, a place where strength, patience, and cunning separate those who feast from those who are feasted upon. Consider the rise of Julius Caesar, not through birthright alone, but through vision sharpened by a predator's eye. Where others saw political allies, Caesar saw potential threats and opportunities. He cultivated loyalty with gifts, but never hesitated to destroy those who posed danger. Mercy when it strengthened him, brutality when it secured his rule. Always he saw the board, not the pieces. And that, more than legions, more than gold, gave him Rome. Now look at yourself. Which lens do you use? Do you walk into rooms seeking approval or leverage? Do you listen to words or study intentions? Do you see relationships as bonds or as exchanges of power? The predator sees all three, but never forgets which one matters most. Psychologically, this perspective is not about cruelty. It is about clarity. It is the acceptance that people act not from morality, but from self-interest. Even kindness can be a strategy, just as betrayal can be a calculated move. Detach from the illusion that everyone plays by the same rules. And suddenly, the board lights up with possibilities no prey could ever see. This is why the predator is patient. They do not rush. They study. They observe human weakness like a map: fear, vanity, greed, and desire, marking every opening. And when the time is right, they strike, not with emotion, but with precision. Think of the Medici bankers of Florence. They lent gold to kings not out of charity, but out of calculated dominance. Debt chained monarchs as surely as iron chains would. An empire built not with swords, but with ledgers. Why? Because the predator knows that control is often exercised quietly, invisibly, through subtle leverage rather than loud aggression. Modern life hides this truth beneath politeness. The office, the negotiation table, the social arena, they all look civil, but the same instincts apply. Colleagues compete for influence. Friends weigh loyalty against opportunity. Partners measure what they gain and what they lose. To deny it is to play blind. To see it is to play like a strategist. But let us be clear. This perspective demands discipline. The predator does not strike at every chance. They strike only where gain outweighs risk, only where timing ensures maximum advantage. Restraint is as vital as aggression. For the hunter who lunges too soon becomes the hunted. Ask yourself, how many times have you been baited into conflict only to lose more than you gained? How often have you trusted too quickly, revealing your plans before securing the other's loyalty? How many opportunities have you missed because you failed to see weakness where it hid in plain sight? This is the essence of the predator's perspective, seeing what others do not. The mask behind the smile, the fear behind the bravado, the opportunity behind the risk. And once you learn to see the world this way, you cannot unsee it. Yet there is a darker truth still. Seeing weakness is one thing. Exploiting it, mercilessly, efficiently, without hesitation, is another. And that is where the true art of power begins, exploiting human weakness. All men have weaknesses. The wise do not condemn them. They exploit them. Human nature is not noble by default. It is fragile, vain, greedy, fearful, and endlessly hungry for validation. Most will deny this truth, claiming virtue guides their actions. But watch closely, and you will see that fear shapes loyalty, desire shapes ambition, and vanity blinds judgment more than reason ever could. Those who understand this do not moralize it. They weaponize it. Consider the reign of Louis XI of France, known as the universal spider. He wove webs of influence so intricate that enemies trusted him even as he prepared their downfall. He bribed some, flattered others, and frightened the rest, always tailoring his strategy to their weakness. The vain were given praise. The greedy were promised gold. The fearful were reminded of his armies. No single approach, only leverage, applied where the mind was most vulnerable. But what of you? Do you know the weaknesses of those around you? Do you study their fears, their secret desires, their need for recognition? Or do you assume reason alone governs them? Because if you assume reason, you play by rules that do not exist. Psychologically, people are simple creatures with complex disguises. The businessman who claims he values integrity, what he really fears is humiliation. The lover who swears loyalty, what they truly crave is the feeling of being irreplaceable. The leader who boasts of strength often trembles at the thought of losing control. These are not flaws to despise. They are keys. Keys to open doors that remain locked to those who judge rather than exploit. Ask yourself, have you ever flattered someone, not out of sincerity, but to lower their guard? Have you ever offered a favor, not from kindness, but to ensure a debt was owed? Have you ever whispered a well-timed doubt into an enemy's ear, watching them unravel their own position without you lifting another hand? If not, you are playing the game half-blind. The master strategist identifies three primary levers of human weakness: fear, The primal force. People fear loss of status, security, reputation, or life itself. Threaten these subtly, and they will obey without realizing why. Not through open aggression, but through suggestion. A whispered warning, a hint of danger. The shadow of consequence often terrifies more than consequence itself. Desire, the irresistible bait. Offer what they crave most: wealth, validation, intimacy, power, and their judgment dissolves. They will defend you, follow you, even betray others for you, as long as they believe you hold the key to their longing. And when desire blinds them, they cannot see the snare closing around them. Vanity, the sweetest poison. Flattery is not praise, it is manipulation. Tell a fool he is wise, and he will seek your counsel forever. Tell a rival he is feared, and he will overreach, seeking to prove it. Tell a leader he is beloved, and he will ignore the knives being sharpened behind him. Vanity seduces faster than reason warns. History is filled with such examples. But you need not rule kingdoms to use them. Every workplace, every negotiation, every relationship follows the same law: find the lever. Pull it with care. Control the outcome. Yet caution must guide this practice. For exploitation is an art, not a bludgeon. If your subject feels used, the spell breaks. If they sense your hand too early, they turn from pawn to adversary. The greatest manipulators leave no trace, allowing their victims to believe the decision was their own. But there is a darker question still. When do you stop exploiting and start breaking? When does persuasion turn to domination? When does influence demand ruthlessness? In the theater of power, kindness has its place. It softens alliances, breeds trust, and paints the image of virtue. But kindness without calculation is suicide. History does not honor those who hesitated when force was required. It buries them. Consider César Borgia, admired by princes, feared by enemies, and remembered by scholars as a master of strategy. He understood the delicate balance: mercy to secure goodwill, ruthlessness to secure obedience. When rebellion threatened his control in Romagna, he did not negotiate. He crushed it swiftly, executing the ringleaders in a single, brutal display, then restored order with fairness. Fear opened the gates. Justice kept them shut. This is the essence of calculated ruthlessness. Not cruelty for pleasure, but precision in enforcing power. Not reckless aggression, but deliberate action when hesitation would invite ruin. But what of you? When someone crosses you, do you respond with decisive force? Or do you retreat, waiting for fairness to prevail? Fairness, like mercy, is an illusion. In the real world, order is maintained not by words, but by consequences. Fail to deliver them, and others will learn they can challenge you without cost. Psychologically, ruthlessness serves a deeper function. It imprints permanence. People forget promises, they forget apologies. But they do not forget decisive action. The memory of swift, unflinching response carves itself into their minds, shaping future behavior. Once shown, it need not be repeated often. The mere possibility keeps rebellion at bay. History overflows with such examples. Look to the Ottoman Empire. When Sultan Mehmed I captured Constantinople, he allowed his troops 3 days of plunder. A ruthless act by modern standards. But once the city was subdued, he imposed strict order, restoring discipline and welcoming diverse citizens under his rule. Why? Because the conquest required fear, but the empire required stability. Ruthlessness achieved the first. Mercy secured the second. But let us bring this closer to you. Modern power may not involve thrones or empires. Yet the principle remains. In business, a leader who tolerates betrayal loses authority. In negotiation, the one who concedes too easily invites exploitation. In relationships, boundaries enforced weakly invite disrespect. In every sphere of life, there comes a moment where mercy is mistaken for weakness, where decisive force must remind the world who commands the board. Does this mean you strike at every slight? No. That is the mark of a fool. Ruthlessness must be calculated, not compulsive. Strike when the gain outweighs the cost. Strike when hesitation would signal fragility. Strike when the lesson will echo beyond the target, warning others to think twice before testing your resolve. Ask yourself, when did you last hesitate, only to watch your influence fade? When did you last let someone take without consequence? setting the stage for others to do the same. When did you last confuse forgiveness with strength, only to find yourself diminished? Each hesitation was a signal. Each delay, an invitation for further challenge. Yet here lies the true danger. Ruthlessness must be cloaked. Never show pleasure in enforcing it. Never revel in cruelty. Cold, efficient, and necessary. That is how it must appear. For a ruler feared is powerful. A ruler hated is doomed. And yet, even this is not enough. For action without discipline risks exposure. Even decisive strikes lose their effect if the world reads your mind, predicts your moves, or senses your intent too early. Thus, the final key to becoming a mentality monster lies not in what you do, but in what you withhold. The discipline of silence, where words end and true power begins. In a world where people reveal themselves through constant speech, the one who withholds becomes unpredictable. They create unease, curiosity, fear. For what cannot be read cannot be controlled. History proves this. Consider the rise of the Borgias. Their strength was not in sheer force but in secrets. Carefully guarded intentions, whispered promises, and concealed betrayals. Enemies feared them not only for their ruthlessness, but because they could never anticipate their next move. A man who speaks his thoughts invites resistance. A man who guards them becomes untouchable. But what of you? Do you speak when silence would serve? Do you announce your plans before they are secure, feeding rivals the chance to sabotage them? Do you reveal anger when insulted, granting your adversary satisfaction? Or do you allow silence to be the knife they cannot see, the shadow they cannot escape? Psychologically, silence is power because it forces others to fill the void. They speculate. They project, they wonder. In their search for certainty, they reveal more than you ever could. They confess with their words. They betray with their nervousness. And while they speak, you study. But silence is not passive. It must be deliberate, controlled, and precise. There is silence to disarm, silence to unsettle, silence to protect, and silence to strike. Consider diplomacy. A ruler who negotiates from eagerness loses before the bargain begins. The one who waits, who lets the other side speak, bargain, and plead, forces concessions without lifting a finger. Because in silence, power shifts. The impatient speak to fill the gap. The disciplined watch and choose their moment. Even in personal dealings, the rule holds. The partner who withholds unnecessary emotion commands respect. The competitor who says less than they know confuses rivals. The leader who listens more than they speak commands attention when they finally do. For when words are rare, they carry weight. Ask yourself, how many times have you weakened your position by over-explaining? How often have you apologized into vulnerability just to soothe discomfort? How often have you given away your strategy simply because silence felt unbearable? Each word spent in haste is a coin stolen from your vault of influence. But there is a deeper level to this art, concealing intent even when action must be taken. For silence is not merely the absence of speech, it is the refusal to let the world know what you truly desire. This is why the greatest strategists mask their motives behind misdirection. A gesture of mercy conceals a plan of conquest. A pause of hesitation hides a strike already prepared. An appearance of doubt veils absolute certainty. And so, the disciplined mind learns to speak only when necessary, to reveal only what cannot be used against them, to craft sentences not as confessions, but as weapons, each one placed with intent. When they do speak, their words carry gravity, for the world has learned silence was not emptiness. It was the sharpening of the blade. Yet here lies the challenge. Silence invites solitude. It alienates the shallow. It provokes the insecure. And yet, this isolation is the price of mastery. For those who play the game at this level no longer seek comfort. They seek control. But there is one final truth. Silence alone is not enough. It conceals. It protects. It unnerves. But to turn it into absolute dominance, it must be fused with all that came before. Fortitude, detachment, the predator's gaze, exploitation of weakness, and ruthless precision. Only then does a mentality monster emerge. A being beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond manipulation. Shall we forge it completely? Then let us take everything you have learned and sharpen it into a weapon that rules both self and world. Power is not seized through force alone. It is seized through perception, through the quiet art of guiding others, while allowing them to believe the choice was theirs. The strong do not shout their dominance. They whisper it, hidden in suggestion, influence, and timing. Control is not seen, it is felt. A hand pulling strings from the shadows while the stage plays on. And have you begun to see the pattern? How fear bends loyalty, how desire blinds reason, how silence unsettles more than threats. Those who master these truths become more than players. They become architects of fate. Now, the question is, will you remain among the guided, or will you join those who guide? Leave your thoughts below. Subscribe if you seek more strategies for the mind, and share this video so others may wonder whether they're watching for wisdom or being led by it.